Hello, and welcome to another episode of Defining Your Brand podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Anne-Marie Obraskin, a marketing strategist for moms who have their own businesses. With over a decade of experience in marketing, you're definitely going to want to hear what she has to say. So please enjoy this episode with Anne-Marie Obraskin. Yeah, so tell me, I know, but if anybody is watching or listening that doesn't know you, I haven't come across you yet, just tell us your name and a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. My name is Anne-Marie Obraskin. I'm a marketing strategist and a marketing coach that works primarily with moms. I've been working in marketing for about 11 years now.
Oh, cool.
In different capacities. I've done everything from working in-house for brands to marketing agencies in New York, and just kind of really running the gamut of everything and working with small businesses now. Primarily now I work with small to mid-sized businesses and then solopreneurs.
Okay. So I'm always fascinated when people say they have marketing backgrounds because I know the importance of it, but it's definitely not, I'd say, either my strong suit or like what I'm passionate about. I am passionate about it working, but I'm not passionate about doing it.
Right.
So I love that. I'm curious about like if the things you can share a little bit about your background for some of the companies and things like that you worked with. What did you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got started in organic social media management. From there, I really dove into analytics, and then also now I got into paid social when that started. So a good portion of my career has been around paid social. I've gone to 3 different agencies now where I came in where they either didn't offer paid social at all or at a very low level. And then I just grew their entire paid social department to the point where it was bringing in pretty healthy revenue. Yeah. And now what I'm doing, when I work with small to mid-sized businesses, thinking more like professional corporation type deals or even like small teams, I help them with their marketing analytics. So I go through all of their data and basically say, hey, this is what the numbers are saying that is working for you. Here's what it's saying it's not working. And then here are my recommendations based on that, plus 10 years of experience.
Yeah. For anyone that's watching or listening, excuse me, that doesn't know maybe the difference between organic and paid, can you like give us a little synopsis of what that is?
Absolutely. So when I started, organic social was really like posting on Facebook. And from there, it's all of the non-paid side of growing relationships on social media. So whether that's strategies of outreach to your potential customers or your posting and your Instagram stories, all of that, anything that there's not paid, like there's not money behind is organic. And then paid is advertising. So think Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram ads, that type of thing.
Do you see a benefit of one over the other, or like, people should focus on one versus the other, or depending on what you do, which one should you focus on?
Ideally, you're using both.
Okay.
When I'm working with my clients for paid social, so when they're running ads, I make sure that they know that there is an expectation that they are keeping up the organic side of things, if they have not outsourced that to me as well, because you really need to connect with people on multiple levels, and you're organically, you may not get the outreach to the new audience that you can as quickly with paid ads. Yeah. You certainly can do it over time, but a lot of people are looking for a quicker return. Right. And then with paid, you're not going to necessarily get the relationship development that you can if you are participating organically on a platform.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've like dabbled. I'm sure there's like, you probably know more than the average person, is like, what is that one of the things that you help people with, like the paid side of it, especially? I know what I hear and what I like, my gut tells me I should be doing, but
Mhm.
it doesn't always seem to be fruitful. Is that something that you help people with, and like knowing how to direct those?
Yeah. And to be honest, it doesn't work for everyone.
Mm,
So, for example, when I start to work with a client doing paid social, like
yeah.
running Facebook ads, we always start with a trial because there's no way to know before you test it out
Yeah.
if your audience is going to connect with it. And there's no point in creating something massive and long term if you don't have that kind of proof behind it, especially for
Yeah.
the businesses that I generally do this with. They're on the smaller side, and so
Mm,
these investments are big chunks of their marketing budget.
yeah.
And so we don't want to get into a situation where you're just throwing money away, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think about anytime you see a commercial or something like that, you think, well, why did that work? But sometimes it just things that don't seem to work, or things that seem obvious that they should work, that just doesn't always seem to be. You just kind of have to see what the reaction is.
Exactly. And with those, like with TV commercials, for
Mm,
example, like those companies, more often than not, they have a massive
yeah.
advertising budget. So one ad flopping is not a huge deal. But when you are an entrepreneur, and you should never go into ads having it be, this has to work.
Yeah. Like, this is the thing that's gonna make it happen.
Exactly. It might, but it might not. And you might be walking away with a lot of really good information.
Mm,
But if you need it to return revenue, that's a lot of pressure on something that might not give you that return.
yeah. So just to be clear, you don't do social media management, you do the actual kind of game plan behind it, or do you do both?
No, I don't do. I mean, I take on clients from time to time,
Yeah.
but my primary offerings right now are uh, for my one-on-one services. It's strategy surrounded by analytics. So no matter what, I'm looking at all of the numbers that a client can give me, whether that's access to their social media channels for the insights or Google Analytics, ideally. And then we create a marketing strategy around that. Because we're looking at the numbers, because when you have the analytics, you don't have to start from scratch. And that only makes life better for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of going back to like where you started with the business, how did that progress into where you are now, or how did that transition kind of carry over into having your own business?
Yeah. Um, so growing up, I always knew that I wanted to run my own business. I grew up with two entrepreneur parents, so I was just surrounded by that my whole life. And even before I had my daughter, I knew that I wanted to be home with her while I ran my business. And so throughout my career, I've kind of had it in my head of that, like, okay, well, someday I definitely want to work for myself full time.
Mm,
And I did a few different things. I worked remotely for other companies, and that was kind of the transition from like agency life in Manhattan to working from home remotely for a couple of different agencies to then just working for myself full time.
yeah.
And the transition from the social media management and paid ads to strategy and analytics is really, my clients want proof that things are working.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even 10 years ago, people were just getting started in knowing, okay, well, we need a Facebook page, but what did you do?
Right.
Like, we see that you posted, but how am I supposed to know if it's making me money?
Yeah.
And so then I really dove in with, okay, well, I have to prove that I'm making them money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can imagine too, because like I think for me and for a lot of people, the posting seems to be what's overwhelming, but I think what's really overwhelms people is the like not knowing, okay, well, once I post this, what's going to happen? Is it going to be beneficial? Is it going to make me money? And then we think, oh, I hate posting, which is not really, because like that's not that hard. It's just that kind of being afraid of, where is this going? Where, what's the purpose behind it?
Exactly. And I think that when you're using something like analytics and looking at the numbers, you can feel a lot more confident in the decisions that you're making. And that can take away that fear. Because I totally agree. A lot of the disdain for social media is like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if it's working. I don't know if I'm making the right choices. And then that fear of, am I just totally wasting my time when I could be doing something that I can definitively see is making me money?
Yeah.
And so when you bring in either someone, or if you learn it, like you learn how to look at the numbers, really the benefit is that confidence and the understanding that, yes, now I can know what I'm doing.
Yeah. There's actually a purpose behind it. I see what the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right. And it makes it a lot easier to not dread doing it.
Yeah.
when you know that, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to be able to see if this worked. As opposed to just, a lot of people feel when they're posting, they're just kind of releasing it. And then it's floating away somewhere.
Off into the World Wide Web, wherever it goes. So for you, and obviously, so I know a little bit just from going to your website and kind of reading a little bit about you, but the people that you want to work with and the people that you do work with and that audience, I would imagine kind of reflects of where your life is at as well. Who do you typically focus on as taking on new clients?
I work with moms of young kids who are working from home. I mean, in general, it's a lot easier to market to someone that you fully understand and someone that you are in their shoes. But also, I mean, especially over the past year, we've been seeing more and more people having to leave the workforce.
Right.
And a lot of that burden falls on mothers, mothers with kids. I mean, obviously there's a lot of burden for everyone,
right.
But I mean, especially with having to leave a corporate job or some sort of traditional job to then be at home. And a lot of people can't afford that. If people are a double income house, either you enjoy working or you need the income.
Right.
So when so many mothers were then needed to stay home because their kids were in virtual school or for whatever reason, there was this influx of people who wanted or needed to make money from home and wanted a legitimate way to do it.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of companies that really are predatory and prey on that market. Multi-level marketing, direct sales, network marketing, whatever you want to call it. A lot of those companies, they force an investment, they force all this stuff, and then it can really harm, especially stay-at-home moms.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to get this message out there that you can do any number of things where you are fully running your own business. You're using the skills that you have. You don't have to learn anything new. You don't have to bring in a bunch of inventory and then just pray that it sells. Like, there are ways that you can do this with little to no investment, and build something you're really going to grow for yourself and your family while you're home. And then maybe you don't have to go back to a corporate job if that's not what you like.
Right. Today's podcast is brought to you by our sponsor, Live Well, Love Well Apparel. Live Well, Love Well Apparel is a t-shirt company, but it's not just a t-shirt company. How many times have you bought a t-shirt that you've loved, but you wear it once and then it sits in the back of your closet? How many times have you bought a shirt to support an organization, but it's not a shirt that you would ever really wear? Live Well, Love Well Apparel is changing that. This company is designing t-shirts that you'd actually want to wear. The material is soft and comfortable, and you're not going to want to take it off. Not only that, but it is a company that gives back. This company is donating a portion of the proceeds to organizations who support feeding the hungry and human trafficking. So if you want a shirt that you're actually going to want to wear while supporting organizations who help those in need, go check out Live Well, Love Well Apparel by going to lwlwapparel.com. That's lwlwapparel.com. So what does the process of working with you look like? Like, what can people expect, and because I know that a lot of people, if they weren't already in this boat before the pandemic, they definitely are now. And just like you said, some of those examples are starting up. They're just trying to be creative in ways that they can make a business or make their, own way in this
Right.
uncertain time. So like I guess my question is twofold. Like, what's the state of that people are in when they come to you? And then what does that process look like that you take them through once they do come to you?
So as this year has gone on, more and more of the women who are coming to me are very early in their business. Most of them have an idea, and they'll come to me and they will join my free Facebook group or their resources. I have some like bite-sized courses that are like, they range from $11 to $33. So they're small, but you can get like exactly what you need from them. Right. And then I have a mastermind that's really my primary offering right now, is a mastermind that I work with a group of women. We have lessons, we go through things, but it's really crafted around what the specific group needs. Mm-hmm. And then we have weekly office hours where basically they come in, they ask questions, and it's not only me sharing my own experience, but it's the whole group. Because especially a lot of people who are newly in this position, they don't have a community. They haven't spent like the years that other entrepreneurs have had cultivating a community of people that they can go to just to like bounce ideas off of. Right. they have maybe their mom group, or they have their work friends or things like that, but very rarely do those overlap. Yeah. And so being able to get this group of people together who can understand two major facets of your life and how they need to work together has been really beneficial. And just the kind of empowerment that I've seen a lot of these women find for themselves, right, has been really, really wonderful.
Yeah. And I can imagine too, I know for a lot of solo entrepreneurs, and I can relate to that sense as well, just in the sense that I'm a one person business, and unless I have a client or unless I have a friend who's creative that I want to bounce ideas off of, it's rare that I get that. And so it's like this, you're fueling a fire and you're excited when you get that. And so I can imagine too, for stay-at-home moms, like they don't have those opportunities to bounce, especially business. You may, like you said, go to a group and ask questions about, parenting, but right, in the work world or business or that creative outlet, they probably don't get that a lot too.
Right. And that's really what I've heard a lot of is, and I specifically speak to moms of younger kids, because what I found was that there are groups out there for general moms who are running businesses, but when you have like these tiny people who are climbing all over you, and they rely on you for so much.
Yeah.
It's a very different life.
Yeah.
And then even, I mean, especially now, I think, like you said, for everyone, it can be very isolating.
Mm.
And then this last year just like emphasized that even more.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I think a lot of us felt like, oh, well, we're kind of used to this. So
Right.
it's not quite as bad. But as the months went on, then you start to realize like, well, I was at least doing XYZ, like to get out of the house. And now you're realizing, oh, not so much anymore.
Yeah.
So being able to have all of these different groups that you can go and be a part of, it's really helpful. I know I've joined more online communities myself just to have these different outlets.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that your business is kind of mastermind format. Do you have you had experience with that, being in groups like that before the one that you've had?
Yes.
And what's your experience with that like?
It was really, it's been really wonderful. There are all different kinds too. I've had peer-led masterminds, which are great, but they almost always kind of fizzle out because people get busy. And then I've been in paid masterminds, which is wonderful too. And I feel like I've tried to take a bit from each of my past experiences and the things that I loved from them and bring them into my own program. But I mean, I feel like I get so much out of meeting with people weekly. But my experience, especially the last one that I was part of, was really wonderful. It was a small group. There were 5 of us.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's so nice because you get to know people really well. And even though it technically ended, we're still all in conversations with each other. And that's how I got connected with you.
Yeah.
Was my friend Emily, who I was in that mastermind with.
Yeah.
So there's the connections that you make, I think, through a paid community, like I mean, it doesn't have to be money, but something that you're investing yourself into. I think those connections become so powerful because you know that you're all working towards a similar goal, and you want to support each other and help everyone grow.
Right. Yeah. And I especially think as entrepreneurs, you see, like, I know what you're struggling with. I know what it feels like to have that. And so you kind of unintentionally or intentionally, but it's like you can't help but root for someone or like to help them get them where they're going. Cause you're like, I know that pain. I know like what it feels like to need to push past a barrier or whatever it may be. You get it.
Yeah. And how much when you were in that stage, you needed to hear from someone who was a couple of steps ahead, just to say like, hey, either this is what I did, or I know exactly how you feel. It's terrible, but you'll get past it and it'll be better on the other side.
Yeah. Cause sometimes it's hard. It's too hard to believe it from yourself, even if you know it, just to hear someone else say the words like, I know what you're going through, and you're going to be able, you're just like, it's affirmation that, okay, I can keep going. I knew that, but I just still needed to hear it.
Yes. And I also have found that a lot of my clients come to me and they say like, that they appreciate that I'm not just saying like, yeah, everything's great, you're supposed to love it all the time. Like, no, sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to do the thing that you don't want to do, you know?
Exactly. And so much of the time, I think we see advice out there where it's like, keep your boundaries, don't take on clients that you don't like only do things that you love or and all that. And I think in each of those things has its place, but I think it's assuming a lot of privilege that many people starting out, or many people who are in new situations, they just don't have the privilege to be turning down certain things or to be setting these boundaries that could lose them clients. Like, sometimes I think you just have to push through it. And like I said, it will be better on the other side, but right now in the moment, sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah. And yeah, I think of too, like, I know personally, I hear about all these like outsourcing everything, which I am totally for, but there's also that sense of, well, you got to be able to do it yourself until you can,
Mm-hmm.
to make that income before you can start handing it off to someone else. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's, it sells more. It's more attractive to hear from these big people that have these massive followings to, just to give it away, to have someone else do it. And we don't all have the assistants and the teams, and we're
Yes,
it.
exactly. And a lot of people don't want that. I
Yeah.
found that that's something that I struggled with when I joined a few programs and realized that, I didn't want to build an empire. I
Mm,
didn't want to build this massive company and make millions of dollars. Like I I don't I do have a couple of people on my team part-time, but I do not want to have employees. That is
yeah.
not the goal of my business. And I found that a lot of the time you really need to look at this is some advice that was given to me that I try to follow every time is
Yeah.
look at the person you are taking advice from, and if you don't want to live the same life they have, you need to go find advice from someone who is living a life that you would like.
Mm,
And I've made that mistake many times of
yeah.
thinking, oh, okay, well, like, yeah, of course I want to make money. So I'm going to go follow this person's advice. But then at the end of the day, it's like, well, okay, but I can't do all of these things that they're doing either because I have a toddler running around and there's going to be screaming and noise,
Right.
or just because, like, well, you know what, I don't have that skill, or maybe I get exhausted talking for people all day or
Yeah.
something. Like, I think that it's something that we forget, and we look at all of the shiny benefits
Mm,
and not necessarily what like in the weeds work takes to get there.
yeah. Or I think sometimes you see an aspect of someone's business and that seems attractive to you, but you don't look at the business in its entirety. And you have to realize that, yes, that's the part you see, but then they're also doing all of these other things too. And do you want that as well? Because it's, you can't always pick and choose like just one thing that you're going to do, because it comes with, even like with what you said with, I don't want to have employees, because employees are great because they can take up work, but then you have to manage people and tell them what to do and teach them. And
And have the
that comes with,
responsibility
yeah, there comes
that
new
comes.
responsibility with new things like that.
Mhm.
So what's like a common thing that you see with the people that you work with? Like, I'm curious, is there a common struggle or problem or question that people come to you with?
Yeah, a lot a lot of the time people will come to me with the question of which platform should I be on?
Mm,
Whether that's social media or whether it's a podcast or uh, focusing on email, any of those things. Say like, well, you know what, should I be on Instagram? Like, well, okay, well, we need to take a step back. First, we need to look at, okay, what are your goals? We need to look at how much, how many resources you have,
right.
whether that's money, time, energy, all of your resources together to figure out which one makes sense
Mm,
and look at the numbers.
right.
If they've already been working on something, a lot of times the people who come to me who are a bit further along in business, who are usually coming to me for the analytics work, they'll come to me with a couple of questions, but usually it's, hey, I know I should be looking at this stuff, but I haven't looked at it and I need some insight. Um, but a couple of things that I see frequently are people saying, I have a podcast. I'm thinking about stopping it because I don't know if it's making me any money. And it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of work to run a podcast. This happened last year. I had a client who she hired me for this analytics deep dive, which is this report I run that looks at your last year of numbers. I go through everything and basically say, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't, here are my recommendations. So we looked at her podcast, and at first what she was measuring was just the number of downloads she got for her freebie, because she was saying basically like that's the only thing that she actively promotes, like in like the ad at the beginning. But what we found was when we looked at her, like the search terms that people typed into Google to get to her site and then buy her course, costs like $1,000, was that people were typing words related to her podcast. So it was like her name and episode number, or the name of the podcast got to the website and then purchase this course. And it's always fun to tell your clients that, because then they're like, you can see like the mind blown emoji,
Right.
just like happening on their faces.
Yeah. It's so interesting because like people like me, like I love what I do, but there's the backside of it with all of those things that are happening that we can't see. To have someone look at that and then kind of say back to you, okay, like here's what's actually going on, here's what people are looking at or searching, that I can't imagine how, because I can do that a little bit, but I haven't had someone. I can only imagine how fascinating that would be as a business owner to be like, oh, this is actually what people are looking for, wanting to see, and interested in.
Yeah, a lot of the times what happens with these reports, or when I'm digging in, is I can give them a whole list of topics, especially from things like their Google search results that got people to their page. Like it's such low-hanging fruit of things that you can share with people. And it's funny, this week I'm recording a new Instagram course all about reaching your customers on Instagram. That's the name of it. And people, what I'm talking about is how to give people what they're actually asking for. Because so many of us we talk about what we want to talk about, what's interesting to us. And then at the end of the day, if your audience isn't interested, you're not going to make any money. And this is a business. Now, if it's a hobby Instagram account, talk about whatever you want, share your photos, whatever. But if the point of your Instagram account, say, is to make money, or podcast or blog or whatever, you need to look at these things so that you can see, okay, great, I need to write more about analytics, or like I need to write more about Instagram. That's how I came up with the fact that I needed to create this course about Instagram.
Right.
Because I saw people wanted me to talk about Instagram.
So I guess a question for you would be, what can people do to go look at, like, what's something simple without hiring, kind of going that step? Like, what's step one that they can do right now? What can they look at? To like know what direction they need to go in, or changes they need to make?
Yeah. So if you sell through your website, or if you get like contact form submissions, however people come and speak to you to eventually hire you or purchase your stuff.
Yeah.
If it's through your website, you can go on Google Analytics. If you don't have it set up yet, it's free. Take a few minutes just to set it up, and then look at your traffic sources. See which platforms are actually sending people to your website. That's the easiest way to get at least a general idea of where you should focus your time. There's more advanced things you can do, but that's like a really easy way to go see, okay, is Facebook sending traffic? Is Pinterest? Is my email system? Most of those things are going to come through. And you can also see like if people are searching you on Google and coming to find you. And then you know that you can focus on like SEO or search engine optimization. But then if you don't have that on your site yet, or if you don't really direct people to a website, look at your social media insights. They're pretty much every platform has them to one degree or another. And as long as you're using a business account which you should be if you're running a business, you can see some really incredible information. Sometimes it's as basic as, like today, I was teaching about looking at the demographics of your followers on Instagram. Like, make sure you're talking to the people you think you're talking to.
Right.
And then you can go in as far as looking at your top posts, your stories, see what actions people are taking. So then you can just know what type of content is making them take action to either send you a DM or go to your website or whatever it is. And then you can make more of that. And it's a really easy way just to get an answer and at least point you in a direction.
Do you see a lot of people skipping this step?
Yes. A lot of people.
Yeah,
I mean, there are certainly people who kind of like dip their toe in, which is great too. I mean, doing any of it is going to be helpful. But so many people don't know what's right there. And I mean, this is free. Like, it's all free information. So you should go and look at it.
For sure. Well, is there anything that people can like kind of look forward to that you're got in the works or that's, kind of coming down the pipeline for you?
Yeah, so right now I'm recording this Instagram course live, and that's really fun. I'm planning on doing it again, not necessarily Instagram course, but I have a couple of other things that I have seen that people would like to hear from me about. So I'm going to be doing that coming up. And then my mastermind is ongoing enrollment. And so I would love to see some more people in there. But otherwise, just for free marketing and analytics content, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at @AMObraskin, or join my Facebook group if you are a mom entrepreneur. It's called Mom Entrepreneurs, Tiny Humans and Giant Paychecks.
There you go. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for joining and kind of giving a little bit of insight on some of these things, because I know as a business owner myself, a lot of those things I know that either one, we don't think about to actually go and do, or like we just don't understand that it's there, or we don't know that there's a resource that we can ask for help from someone that knows more about it than we do. So yeah, I think it's really great what you're doing, especially the demographic that you're reaching to, because I see a lot of those, moms and, everybody obviously is struggling, but, having friends and just seeing them trying to juggle being a mom and being at home all the time, and everybody's home and they're trying to work, and it's a lot. And so I think it's really cool that you're, providing a service to those people to kind of win right now.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's been so great talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will link everything below, and people can go find what you're doing and learn a little bit more about you and what you're offering as well.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.